Here's how a fan base is constructed typically. I call it the 80-20 rule, but it's really like the 10-80-10 rule. Let's call it that. So the 10-80-10 rule is like this. You've got on either side of a fan base a fringe 10% that are ultra optimistic. I'm talking about like eternally optimistic. And then on the other side of the snake down here, you've got the 10% that are forever pessimistic. These would be like your Georgia fans who are worried that they're going to lose to the Citadel. So cut both ends off the snake. Those are the people you probably hear the most from because the fringe are the most vocal. The 80% are the silent majority, but you don't hear from them as much. So maybe nationally, when you see headlines and when you see predictions and when you see people's quote unquote takes on a program, they're just parroting the fringe. But the fringe is not the rule. The fringe is the exception. If you are amongst these people, if you are amongst fans, which I am 24/7, look at that, 365, then I know how you actually think. I talk to hundreds of you per week, so I know what you're thinking. And therefore, I find us to be pretty well equipped to do the mood tracker. The mood tracker is essentially, we're going to take programs from the SEC West right now. I'm going to tell you what the maybe silent majority, those 80%ers, what they're thinking about the program right now. Let's start with LSU. LSU, this is a perfect example of why it's so important to win championships when you get to play for championships. They are in full-on house money mode. I'm not telling you they're not focused on this season, but I'm telling you it is house money mode. If they go 9-3 this year, you know what they get to do? Well, they get to watch themselves in the Outback Bowl. And then right after that, later that night, they get to cook up something in the backyard, and they get to pour something unspeakable in the glass, and they get to pop on that Clemson game again, and they get to pop on that Georgia game again. You can watch those replays until the end of time. You can look at that trophy until the end of time. But now it's 2020. So you got that, it's always in your back pocket. Now there are a lot of questions, but the thing about the questions is they're so much easier to swallow when you've got a championship in your back pocket. Think about what would happen if you had all that last year and you came up short. Do you understand how wide the gulf is there? If you had all that last year, generational left, generational right, and you came up short, now you'd be thinking to yourself this year, if we couldn't get it done with all that last year and now they're all gone, I mean, we're back to square one. In reality, they're not back to square one, but it's important to win championships. So LSU folks, they're curious about Miles Brennan. They're very confident in him. But more specifically, here's where the detachment is. There's a wide detachment inside LSU when you get on the ground with LSU folks versus maybe some national types in the way that they think their program's operating. A lot of people think 2019 was a standalone. It just kind of came in and then it left, and now LSU's back to whatever LSU was before. That's not the case. There's a lot of residue that will remain because 2019 happened due to a cultural shift inside that program that we've spoken about ad nauseum on this show. And so, hey, I don't have to promise you I'm right. They don't have to promise you that they're right. You don't have to promise me you're right. The season will bear it out. They don't have to go undefeated to prove it either. Season will bear it out, and I can bet pretty much every dollar in my pocket. It may not be much, but I can bet pretty much every dollar in my pocket, regardless of how LSU's season turns out this year. You will not look back in December and say, see, told you LSU's just back to the same old, same old. Don't think that's going to be the case. Now, how about Alabama? What's the mood amongst the 80% for Alabama? I would say that they are tiptoeing with confidence right now because they think they know a lot of things. One of the segments, sometimes we'll do it during the season, one of the segments that we'll do is, I think I know. You know, you got a pretty good feel, but wouldn't quite bet the farm on it just yet. Well, Alabama folks, the 80% there, they think they know some things. They think they know, for example, their defensive struggles last year were not due to any kind of scheme flaw. They weren't necessarily due to offenses evolving and just leaving Alabama defensively in the dust. They were due to injuries. They were due to a mountain of injuries, and a lot of them at the same positions over and over and over again, the likes of which no program could overcome, even one that recruits at the level that they do. So they think they know that, and the answer there is obvious. Just have a bunch of healthy players and we'll find out. They think they know that these strength and conditioning overhauls are going to work wonders. They think they know that if not now, then in the very near future, with Bryce Young, the overall top player in America, coming in per the last 24/7 sports recruiting cycle at quarterback, They're set for at least another 3 years at that position, and so they think everything's fine. I tend to agree with that sentiment, mostly across the board. It's as simple as keeping guys on the field. If that's all true, then it's as simple as keeping guys healthy. That's why I've spent an inordinate amount of time, when we're talking Bama on this show, I've spent an inordinate amount of time talking about their strength and conditioning. That's it. That's Nick Saban had a chance to fire Pete Golding and hire anyone he wanted to. I'm going to talk more about this Sunday night. He didn't. Why do you think he didn't make a move? Because there were no qualified candidates out there? No, it's because as he told us himself when we talked to him about a month and a half ago, he said, man, when we did what was called to do, when we did what we were supposed to do defensively, we were fine. We didn't have enough guys who were capable of doing it. We were playing kids out there. Physically, they may not look like it, but mentally, there were a lot of boys on the field last year for Alabama. A lot of guys that probably in typical Alabama years are seeing mop-up duty, and they're seeing special teams reps, but they're not on the field to start the season calling plays at linebacker. Well, that's where Alabama was last year. So tiptoeing with confidence. You know, you walk out on ice. Is it thick enough to hold my weight? I think it is, but let me tiptoe, even though you weigh the same, regardless of how slowly you walk. Down the road at Auburn, boy, it's, you know, I know I told you it's the 10-80-10 rule. Whew, it's like the 20-20-20-20-20 rule. There are a lot of different segments of the Auburn fan base. So I'm going to try and pin it down the best I can here. I would very, very tentatively refer to the silent majority here as being in show me Gus mode. Show me Gus. Now, I don't think last year was a failure by any stretch of the imagination. They played a really tough schedule. I think they finished 9-4 with the bowl loss. The bowl loss probably threw me for a loop as much as anything. But they're in show me Gus mode, and basically it's this. Basically, no one's calling hot seat for him because of last year, but what they're saying is, was last year a step in the right direction, or is that about as far as we can go given who we play every year with the way we currently do things? And I think a lot of them feel that way. They feel like, okay, I mean, we're good right now, but no one's calling us great because we're not great. Can you evolve? Specifically, offensively, can we evolve? I mean, you're an offensive guy. This is me, the Auburn Nation, talking to Gus Malzahn. Make sense of this for me, Coach. You're an offensive guy. Program is supposed to reflect the identity of the head coach, right? Yet defense is what's kept us in the championship hunt over the past several years. Why in the world are you making 5 times what Kevin Steele makes? That was a little harsh. I apologize. But, I mean, you think about that a little bit? What's been the identity? What's been their calling card? What's the hallmark of Auburn football when they're winning over the last 4 years? It's been defense. So can we evolve a little bit here? Can we have an effective enough offense that, you know, doesn't stall after the first 10 or 15 scripted plays? Can we develop a quarterback in-house? Bo Nix had some promising flashes, but he also had some very bad decisions at times. This game right here that Colin's showing you against Florida, I was on the field for that one. There were some throws that made you go, oh, good, you know, like that one right there. And then there were other throws, or maybe throws that should have been made that weren't, that made you go, ooh. Can we be consistent there? Can we develop our own quarterback instead of always having to get a transfer from somewhere else? Can we retool this offensive line? Can we maintain our status as a shark? You can't afford to just be a big fish in the SEC West. You can afford to be a big fish if you're investing 50% of what we invest, but we're all in. We're not partially in here. So we have fully invested. We do everything you ask us to do. When are you going to do it for us? Now, you look from the outside and you say, well, geez, man, I mean, you're competing against Nick Saban and Alabama. They're on an all-time great run. Georgia is on the precipice of a national championship. LSU just won one. I mean, history says Auburn should be an afterthought right now. And in reality, they're not. Like, they're a top 15 program every year. They don't want to hear it. All that's true. They don't want to hear it there. So that's where their mood is. It's their mood. It's not what we think their mood should be. How about Texas A&M? The time has arrived. Time has arrived. You could say this just as easily in the East for Florida as we say it in the West for A&M. There's been patience. You talk about giving what's been asked. This fan base, this booster class, this donor class out there, they gave everything and then some that's been asked of them, and they've sat back. They've created a great environment. I would challenge you to find me a better game day atmosphere, even when they're average, than Kyle Field and College Station. One of the reasons, selfishly, I want to see them grow into a top 10, top 5 program. It's just, I want to see what that place is like on a Saturday when they're welcoming LSU or Alabama or Auburn in there, and they have got like a number 3 or a number 4 next to their name in the national rankings chart. That'd be a scene. But they've done everything. And so just as much as we were talking identity with Auburn, if I'm an A&M fan, if I'm the silent majority there, I've got patience, but I've had patience. I've given you 3 years now. So this is your roster. Pretty much every player here you recruited, and the ones that are here from the previous regime you obviously like enough to have kept around, or they would have been gone through their volition or maybe through other means. So we've done what we've asked or been asked to do. You got to give it to us now, because we look at their offense, the one they ran at LSU last year, the one that carved us up in our own building when we faced Alabama. Why doesn't ours look that way? You are Jimbo Fisher. You're a quarterback guy. You're an offensive guy. We've got the talent. We've recruited very well, and we appreciate that. We got to get the results. There's no reason whatsoever, 3 years in and beyond now, where we should be playing the big boys and be double-digit underdogs, and then have the result turn out about on par or maybe even worse than what the point spread says it should. Those should be dogfights. Maybe not year 1, maybe not year 2, but year 3, yeah. So your trademark is offense, your trademark is developing quarterback, and we got one that feels like he's been there about 20 years now, and Kellen Mond, do something with it. It is show me time in College Station for Jimbo Fisher. So that's the mood tracker for the SEC West.